how I learned to teach the slave trade is from the perspective of the resistance.
Okay.
So, not the perspective of the defeated.
Yes, understood.
Do you see what I'm trying to say to you? Because that's not our history. Because you've got to remember, Europeans have slavery in their history.
Of course they have.
Yeah?
Have you seen what the Irish went through?
The Irish went through it. The Icelanders, the Vikings took slaves of the Brits, but they don't teach that in their schools because that's not their history. That is Viking history. You go to Iceland, you go to Norway, they're going to teach, well, when we went up to Britain, we had them as our slaves. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you? So the problem with things like 12 Years a Slave, the problem with things like Roots is that it's teaching African history, but from the perspective of the defeated, not from the perspective of the resistance. So when you look at the... sorry, I'm going to let you come back.
No, I'm feeling this now. I've been. You got me, Richard. Bind me.
So when we're teaching African history, we need to be looking at the Maroons. We need to be. You got to remember that there were people they were Maroon colonies that won. We need to teach the revolts. We need to teach the Haitian Revolution.
Yeah, Haiti,
right.
Yeah,
so
right.
when we're looking at that is our history. So, for example, Czechoslovakia, Slovenia, Slovakia, Yugoslavia. The Romans took so many slaves out of that place that they put slave in the name. That Slav, that word is slave, yeah? So Yugoslav, they took so many slaves out of there. But the idea that when you say slave, the instant thought process is Africans. We think about chattel slavery is a European construct, but it wasn't always that way. Europeans have slavery too. King Henry VIII, there's a thing called being Barbadoed. And what Henry VIII did, he was the nutcase. And what Henry VIII did was when there was so many vagrants in London, and what they would do is literally go up behind them, buduf, and they'll wake up on a slave ship on their way to Barbados. Really? The only difference between that when they took the Europeans when they took the white slaves was they only had to survive for 7 years and then they'd be freed, given a little bit of land to crack on, whereas for the Africans it was. So one of the biggest kept secrets of European history is that a lot of white Americans are descendants of slaves too. It's not just the African Americans. This history is not taught. So what I'm saying is, for me, when I see things like 12 Years a Slave, Roots, and when I look at those programs there, that is European history. That's not our history. Our history is Nanny of the Maroons, Kodjo. Our history is Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. That's our history during that period. History is the struggle and process of a people trying to create the world in their images and after their likeness. So African history is the story of Africans trying to Africanize the world. The transatlantic slave trade, as told by Europeans, is not our history.
No,
it's their history.
No, it's not.
Because
and it's human theft.
History is about your good and your greats. Yeah. Now, when I teach African history, and I learnt this from Robin Walker, when I teach African history,
He's my guy.
That's
my
all right.
That, brother.
So he's my master teacher. And when I learned